Wow, hello, people. Hope this works well. I've tethered the thing to the mobile phone. Hope it works, and we'll see what happens. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. I'm just moving into this place, so yeah, it should be fun. So, guys, how you doing? Hope everyone's absolutely fantastic. And yeah, hopefully people start to join us as they see this link is up. Yeah, right. So how's everyone doing? It's a nice day out there, nice and beautiful. I've been working in the lab. I want to tell you guys what I was doing in the lab. I'll show you some photos, but first I want some more people to join up so I don't have to repeat myself. But you know, it's been a great day. I see CF Apps has been interviewing. He interviewed that guy, that guy who talks like someone from the army. What's his name? Uncharted X. He interviewed him. That was interesting. So, g'day, Travis Goldson. How you doing, mate? Yeah, Blitzkrieg. Hey, Blitzkrieg. And he says, yay, finally made one of your streams. Yeah, I don't normally do it this time of day. It's like late afternoon. It's what, 4:21 p.m. Yeah. So, yeah. So, you know, hope you guys are just amazing and awesome. And yeah, this is my new apartment. So I'll live here for a while, you know, just for fun. Hey, Von Lou. How you doing, Von Lou? Hello, 83 Ricky Spanish. Love the new digs. You like it? It's so it's like it's got like it's new. Like it's got new stuff. There's the view. There's a Mount Dandenong. Maybe I'll go on the balcony. I don't know. It's not really a penthouse, just an apartment, but it's top floor. Anyway, cheers, Travis. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's got like I wanted to make sure of the view because here's the thing, right? When I bought this over a year ago, it wasn't built yet. The salesman was such a shyster, and he was saying that they're actually building a block over there. They're trying to get it built, a 5-story. It's going to block the view of the city. And I was saying, I want one on this side because that one's going to block the view of the city. So I'll have a view of the country instead, a view of the countryside or towards the countryside. That's still all Melbourne except for the mountain. So I wanted that, you know, I wanted that view. That's what I'm talking about, right? Where's the mountain? Let's see. So that you can see the mountain, right? So I wanted that view, and the guy said, oh no, they're not building over there. That's been rejected. They're going to build a house. And they keep trying to build, and the residents keep rejecting. Yeah, they keep trying to build, and that's they give you a window like that so that the neighbours can have privacy in their backyards, or so they think, but you know, not really. Anyway, so yeah, okay. So what are we going to talk about? So yes, there's more of you on now, so that's good. So so David says, look into Han Purple, all linked, I believe. Blitzkrieg says, absolutely gorgeous. Blitzkrieg says, I just finished work, so I'm happy to relax and watch. Yeah, so nice. So I'm going to type, I love you people. And so I'm going to show you, because now there's 17 of you on, I'll show you what I was doing. There'll be more of you on later, but I'll show you. So I was just in my laboratory today, and what I was doing was I was, do you see that? Basically making a type of British superior cement from the 18th century. And this is in the Encyclopedia Britannica. If you guys remember the Britannica videos, you'll remember this. And the constituents are very interesting. This is called cold cement. And it seems back in the day, cement means strong holding substance. Currently, cement is mortar, right? Or it's kind of similar to mortar. But back in the day, cement was like glue for holding bricks together, because what we call mortar, which was used until the 1950s, lime and sand, which comes straight out. You can scrape it straight out, We used to do that to the primary school because there was nothing to do. Scrape it straight out. That is called, was called putty back in the day, I'm finding out. And the strong cement is something totally different, seems to be a lost art, which is quite interesting. We'll get to, I'll just answer a few of these, and then we'll get to what the constituents are. And tomorrow I'll see if it actually holds together. You see what I mean? So Shane Moss says, good morning from England, 5:24 a.m. Early bird catches the best videos. Yes, hello England. I hope you're having a wonderful time in the beautiful, mysterious England, which is one of the most amazing countries in Europe. If you're into ancient mysteries, it's unbelievable. The Daily Dan blog says, greetings from South Carolina. Hello. Hello to the country of wagon wheel, etc. South Carolina. Hey, Bill. Blitzkrieg says, we love you, Charles. Tam Australia says, g'day, you legend. Hello, you legend, Tam. Vonderloo. Thought it was a ham dandwich. Interesting. Oh, ham dandwich, this thing here. You thought this was a ham, you thought this was a ham dandwich. That's a brick. And what's going on? Oh, it was using Syria, or Bixby. So that is the paste, all right? Ignore the paint, that's the paste, which I mixed up in a beaker. That's the paste. It's got egg, cheese, lime. It's very strange. And this used to be used if they needed a strong cement to hold two stones together. So I'll read you out the recipe in a second. Neuromancer says, greetings from Austin. That was a great novel too, Neuromancer. Like, oh my God, hello chops. Ricky says, I have a random question, but if you choose an ancient megalithic structure to obscure that nice view you have, which one would you choose? You mean to look at? Wouldn't it be cool, instead of looking at a mountain, to look at Sacsayhuaman? That would be amazing. But anyway, so the Britannica recipe, just if you're wondering what that paste was, because I don't want to leave you hanging, that was it from the 1771 Encyclopedia Britannica. It's an incredible chemistry textbook of pre-Lavoisier, like 30 years before Lavoisier. Lavoisier, of course, he started to measure the amounts, and he said, oh, this amount equals that amount of gas which escaped, so therefore it's all equal. And of course, the alchemists knew this before, but Lavoisier gets the credit for inventing chemistry for this reason. And the chemistry of Lavoisier was different from the chemistry of 30 years earlier. The chemistry of today is different from 20 years earlier before today. It's incredible. But anyway, this cement that I was making, I'll show you those pictures. It just says cold cement made of Cheshire cheese. So I use cheddar cheese, it seems to be from the same region, cheddar, Cheshire, from Chester. The French call it Chester cheese. Then to that you add milk, quick lime, and whites of eggs. So I didn't know how much of these substances to add. So all I did, I added a bit of everything, one egg white, and then I kept adding more and more lime and trying different adhesions until I got to, you know how when you mix mortar, it's supposed to be until it sticks the spatula when you turn it upside down. So I turned it into that, pasted it on. We're going to see tomorrow what the result is. And this cement is less used than the former, but is accounted a secret known to but few bricklayers. And I looked up Chester cheese or Cheshire cheese. It's the oldest cheese in England. And not only is it the oldest cheese in England, it's from Chester, which of course has always been a bit of a redoubt. It's in the north, but not just the north. It's not Northumbria. It's on the other side, north of Wales. So this would have been a holdout of the ancient Britons. Did they preserve ancient geochemical knowledge? And this is a type of biological cement. And Cheshire cheese, apparently it's pre-Roman. It's a sort of like a pale yellow slushy cheese, a bit slushy, a bit moist. And it said you can use cheddar. I looked up a recipe online. You can use cheddar if you don't have Cheshire. So I found it very hard to buy Cheshire here. So I looked up cheddar. And so I put cheddar into the mortar mix. We'll see if that works. And it says this cold cement is less used than the former. This is the recipe here. All right. So the former being hot cement, which is the most common. So this is how bricklayers joined things together back in the day. If they weren't just using putty, which is lime and sand, they what they would do if they wanted something really strong, resin, whatever that is, beeswax, brick dust, chalk, boiled together. The bricks to be cemented with this kind must be made hot with the fire and rubbed to and fro until the cement is spread in the same manner as joiners do when they glue two boards together. So that's hot cement. And of course, cold cement, which I just made, cold cement, Cheshire cheese, milk, I used instant milk, quick lime, whites of eggs. I didn't add sand. It didn't seem to need it. It was just like a gloopy glue, which didn't seem to need any sand. This cement is less used than the former, and is accounted a great secret known but to few bricklayers. And you never hear this these days, do you? But anyway, I'll get to comments, because what's the point doing live if no comments? So we have to interact. So Daily Dan blog says South Carolina, USA, and it's 1:26 a.m. here. Neuromancer says greetings from Austin, Texas. Chop says hey all. Travis says like that special Roman cement. Indeed. So recently, archaeologists have become famous for discovering this Roman cement, just as they've also discovered orichalcum in Italy and all these other things. But here's the thing. Why are these found archaeologically? Why not just look up an old book? Now, many of these books are written in Latin. If you go prior to 1600, the book will be written in Latin. It might be written in English, but it probably will be written in Latin. But why not? Get used to reading Latin. Just try reading it. And eventually, I bet all these geopolymers are written in old books about building. I bet you. And this is from ancient Britain, an ancient British type of cement. It's a biological cement, just like the Roman cement has, for instance, it's got ash in it. It's similar to the way they make terra preta using ash. So I'm wondering, do the same people who make the Roman cement make the terra preta soil? Quite interesting. I mean, so I'll put the results on the chemistry channel, The Blue Moon. I'll put it on there when it's done. I'll actually just find that channel and link it, because I want you guys to subscribe to it and see it, because we need to do some fun.
We know people work
playing an ad. I'll do some chemistry
in all
on
sorts
there.
of different ways. So
don't do that. So The Blue Moon Charles. So we're going to link to that channel. It's got 235 subscribers, so thank you for that. And I'll just put the link up. There's the link. You can subscribe if you want to. John Smith says so much white. Yeah, I know. This is kind of off-white. So I just bought this apartment. Yeah, and it's got a nice view. I showed people the view earlier. There's the view. It's looking towards the east. That's Mount Dandenong. There's a beautiful view of the city from there. Just amazing. I got all this stuff. That's a stove, and this type of stove can only work with certain types of cookware. Like it only works with certain types of stainless steel. Anyway, whatevs. So Blitzkrieg says something really interesting. Oh no, hang on, let's go back a bit. So Tam Australia says, love how you answer all the questions honestly and frankly, not many people do nowadays. Armchair Philosopher says, how do you respond to critics who tell you that you never really prove anything in your videos? What standard of proof do you use to prove what many consider to be outlandish claims? Here's the problem. You can't prove it without a time machine. The archaeologists can't prove it either. So what do? The only thing to do, don't you think, is you stack so much evidence together that it seems to become overwhelming and it seems to displace the earlier evidence. Or it seems to be a strong enough suggestion that this is something new. And I think that's what the academics consider to be proof, but it really has to be overwhelming or they don't change their ideas. And so many people have evidence which is almost overwhelming, but not quite. For example, Fred Hoyle considered that the Mariner mission did find evidence of life in one experiment, even though the other experiments found no evidence of life. And he said this should have been cause for further experimentation. And instead, it was concluded there was no life on Mars. I think it was in the 70s. And they sort of lost interest in this. But there was one experiment. They reacted something with the soil of Mars, and gas was released, which would indicate life. And yeah. So Patrick says, did glue cement expand any while drying? I'm not sure. I've only just done this one today. So what I've done today for those people just joining is I've made the cement that's in the Britannica. You might want to rewind and see what I did, but basically pasted it onto a brick, as you see. And it's basically lime, Cheshire cheese, the most ancient cheese in England. So I think that means it's the most ancient, one of the most ancient biological cement recipes from ancient Britain. It's got milk. It's got egg white, not the yolk, just the white. So it's relying on some of that protein and lots of lime. And the recipe didn't mention sand, so I didn't put any, but I imagine you would put sand in there because you always do. So you could add sand if you wanted to, but I'll see how it sticks tomorrow. I'll leave it a few days. I'll see how it sticks. I've glued 2 bricks together, 2 potsherds together, some other things together. Yeah, and I'm running off the internet on this phone, so let's see how long it lasts. Anyway, yeah, so Blitzkrieg says, random fact. I use Megapoxy at work. It's like putty, almost like pottery type consistency, and sets extremely hard like cement. I wonder if this is a kind of older type of epoxy, like glue. But they called glue cement before, but they mentioned glue. We'll have to check that out. So Vondeloo says iron filings and granite dust too. Oh, Culprit Black says try putting a bit of vinegar in. Wow. Hello, Vrovny. Pshetstojnik. What do you think about old Mexican aqueducts? I don't know anything about them, but you might want to put a link down there so people can see what you're talking about, okay? Neuromancer says, what do you know about the allegedly erased Tartarian Empire? Oh, I know it's Siberia. I know that Tartaria on old maps has an absence of Siberia. So the names seem to be similar, but not quite interchangeable because Tartaria is West China. And that's official. It's officially West China. Yeah, so Blood Force says, hello, Charles, nice apartment. What do you think about the geopolymer theory with some of the megaliths like Tiwanaku and the pyramids? So I think it's a very good theory, but who knows if it's true? It's like that guy said earlier, the standard of proof. Just because Mr. Davidovich created it, are we ever going to be able to say, yes, that was the way it was done, if we don't have a time machine? I put that question to you, for you to answer. John James says, congratulations. Culprit Black says, try heating it up at different temperatures for different times to test strength. That's a good idea. You see, and this is the thing with chemistry. I'm doing fairly innocuous biological chemistry, because why do you want to hurt yourself with acids? Lots of people, they start chemistry, they get all the acids and they want to and do all the, but why would you play with something? Acids are actually the job of the acid is to try and decompose you and kill you, because an acid is something that's very rarefied. You don't encounter it in nature unless it has to be prepared. It's a very time-consuming process to prepare an acid. I looked up the other day how to prepare acids, and instead of how to make, say, HCl or something, it actually said something like LSD? What are people looking up online? Just unbelievable. But there's so much chemistry you can do, like just innocuous stuff that won't hurt you. It's just unbelievable, It's unbelievable. You can find old recipes in old books that no one knows about today, that are totally forgotten. Because one of the things I discovered a few years ago is, because life is short, people today know very little of what people before knew, but the people before, they wrote it in books for us to read, and we don't read them, So we've got to read these old books. Maybe it's in old building books. I bet you old building books from Europe will have the geopolymer recipe, but who's looking up? One guy is researching it, Davidovich. He has a small team of people researching it. He's not a historian. His team are not historians. They're not going to be able to read old books. They're not going to know how to find old books. he is historical. He has found Egyptian texts, but he hasn't looked in European texts for geopolymer. He hasn't looked in European texts, I believe, for old cement. It's there. Why not look, Yeah. So, Yvonne Lelou says, burnt guano dung in Peru instead of lime or ash. Rover says, whatever came of Amazon dirt experiments, it's still ongoing. So here's what's happened. I had it in the shade. Not much was happening. I moved it to the sunlight. Boom, in 2 days, it shot up about 2-3 inches, all the bean plants. And the plants in the Terra preta, or the ash or charcoal soil, which had been shorter than the ones in the regular soil, suddenly went up to the same height as the ones in the regular soil. And in addition, the Terra preta plants both have larger leaves than the normal plants. So possibly to get more sunlight. This might be an epigenetic explanation for why the sunlight is blocked in the Amazon, because the special soil encourages plants to switch on the larger leaves DNA. And now they've all gone into suspended animation. It's been raining a lot. For the past 10 days, I've seen no growth. But this happened last time I tried the experiment. And what happened then, they continued to shoot up after a month or two. They continued to get better and better. So we'll just leave it. We'll see what happens, and I'll report back all the results when we get them. So, Fire Marshal Bill Burns says, are you ever planning on visiting Easter Island? I'd love to. And hello, Bill Burns. Because Easter Island's just amazing. I'm sure there's a lot more that anyone can discover. If you go there, you're going to see more that's in any book. You're going to see what the people look like. These people are Easter Islanders who were all enslaved, taken to Peru, but then many of them were repatriated back to Easter Island. So lots of the people who are living there are based on the ancient Easter Islanders. Blitzkrieg says the megapoxy also heats up through the chemical reaction between two compounds. It's really interesting stuff. Yeah, so there's some interesting channels doing this. Like I've been looking at, you've probably been looking at this cool channel called Tech Ingredients, and I thought, damn, this guy is incredible. This Tech Ingredients guy, he does amazing experiments. He has a chemistry. He said he does a bit of chemistry, but he's not a chemist. You can see he's not a chemist. He measures, like for example, he measured an amount using a beaker. Beakers are only for mixing things. You want to use a volumetric flask or a pipette or something to measure. But yeah, he's just doing it roughly. But that guy is so smart, so amazing. Like, wow, he's building rockets and things. Hello, Kimberly, how you doing? The rover says, what about Tartarians having built the Great Wall of China, possibly? Who knows? Because the first emperor didn't really build the Great Wall, did he? So John says Mars is not a place you can go, and you're quite correct about that. I mean, it's, you know what? Someone told me something that, you see, Russia is a very wild place, for example. If I would like to go to a place called the Altai Republic, and that place has, it looks a bit like maybe Scotland or Norway, but in a different Asian type way. And I thought, well, this is the kind of Nicholas Roerich type landscape, and I'd love to go there. But a friend told me, don't go there. If you have an accident, they won't send a helicopter. They won't send anything. You'll just die there, because it's Russia, right? It's Siberia. And it's true. So the Russians, although unconquered themselves, have not really been able to fully conquer their own country. So how the heck can we conquer Mars? I mean, it's hard enough maintaining a house. We all have houses that need endless maintenance. We can't even maintain them. It's an endless chore. How the hell can we maintain a house on Mars with no hardware shop out there? You know what I mean? This is an unbelievable. They're going to have to dump a massive amount of space junk onto the surface of Mars in the same spot. Then that will all be cannibalized in order to manufacture houses, I suppose. Just dump a massive amount, because you need like a supply depot of everything you can imagine in endless quantity just to build a few small houses, like they're going to find that, and then the oxygen situation. I mean, why would you want to live on Mars? It's like living, we don't even live in the desert on Earth. Why would you want to live on a cold, freezing desert on Mars where you can't breathe the oxygen? This Elon Musk is absolutely crackers. Do you think he's absolutely bonkers? But if he wants to do it, let him do it. He's going to find out the hard way how difficult this really is. Yeah, right. So, what are we talking about? So, Culprit Black says, I'll denature the proteins so you can repolymerize them. Kimberly says, laughing my butt off. Why is your search results bringing up LSD recipes? Because I looked up how to make acid, and and the whole page is how to make LSD. Why would you want to make LSD? I don't want to take that rubbish. A friend told me you can be stuck in a trip if you take that rubbish. Why would you want to take that rubbish? And then you have all these rubbish people like Huxley and all this, and they were doing experiments on it. Yeah, sure enough. But I mean, come on. Man. Anyway, what are we talking about? I don't know. Anyway, so Blunt Force says, cool. Blade Clint says, hello from Adelaide, and where is the new place? I'm in Melbourne, I'm in the east. And looking towards the east because they're going to block off the view of the city on that side. And the salesman tried to say, no, they're not going to build there. They're not going to build it. There's a large empty block right there. They're going to build a massive apartment tower. I'm looking towards the east here. I've got a better view. It's nice. It's a countryside, So what are we talking about? And Blitz is talking to the other Adelaidean, Blade. Adelaide. Adelaide must be a very nice place, actually, because it's got a lot of English people there and who settled there. It must be amazing. Must have lots of nice gardens, I imagine. The Rover says, Andreas Zertis' channel has some good Tartaria theories that are not far out there. Check him out. Joe Dirty says, Elon is a setup, just like Ole Billy Boy Gates. Jace Ventura says, Gay Charlie. Gay Jace. Rodney says, there are many ancient aqueducts in Mexico. Which one do you want to be presented to you? Mexico City to Tepoztlan. Check out the masterpiece. I doubt it was made by Spanish colonies. Thanks. Maybe you'd like to post a selection of 5 links here so we can, maybe 4 or 5, so we can check out the whole range. Go for it, mate. Just a 1 or 2, whatever you want to do. Just paste them in there and we'll have a look, and we'll see what you're on about, because I wasn't aware of ancient aqueducts in Mexico. I'm wondering what the link is between the Mexican aqueducts and the Roman aqueducts, since both civilizations seem to have mastered these. And if you're talking about ancient Mexico with the aqueducts, didn't the Aztecs build or inherit the Mexico City, which was a canal city? Who built these, Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so Maze says Adelaide is nice, just nice. So Sass says, go and search for how to meltstone sound, all this. Jace Ventura says, concrete, check out Wise Up channel. Yes, Wise Up is he's brilliant. He's a brilliant, I don't agree with lots that he says, but he's brilliant. I used to watch all his videos, but he doesn't like me very much, so I stopped watching his channel. Yeah, he called me a shill, actually. Can you believe that? Yeah. How stupid would you have to be to think you get paid to make YouTube videos and embarrass yourself? I wish. I wouldn't mind. That'd be cool. If they were doing that, I'd say, give me the money. Anyway. So Blade says, so Ramses has an unusual body shape. Thoughts? Yeah. So I made a video suggesting Ramses could be a Neanderthal, because those short legs and big hips, it's a very Neanderthal type body. And you look at the elongated face compared to that, and this going back there, long fat, it's a bit Neanderthal. Yeah. Oh, thanks for saying I'm not one of those shills. So Blitzkrieg says, what was your first initial reason for your line of research? What got you interested to begin with? So I set up this channel because I realized that the 3 great pyramids are a trinity, and the trinity is the ancient Roman religion. It's an ancient worldwide religion. So that could be why they built the 3. And of course, one is much smaller, the child. 2 are the same size, the mother and the father, or it's the 3 wise men, another ancient god. Yeah, what do you think? And no Egyptologist talks about this, but it's worldwide prehistory. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I'm going to get a glass of water. So yeah. I mean, what do you guys, what do you guys think of all this? Yeah. Woo. Right. Yeah. It must be. Sorry, excuse me. It must be nighttime in America. There aren't so many people online. It's normally about double. So, but then again, I don't do it this time of day usually. But yeah. So Jay says, I liked your older house. I still got that too. I don't know what I'll do with that yet, but I'll. So Blake Clint says, Bosnian pyramid, no support, and why? Yeah. And Blitzkrieg responds, oh yeah, awesome. That's something I actually didn't know that. Just learned something new. So we're talking about the Trinity. The rover says 1:50 a.m. here in South Carolina. Fire Marshal Bill Burns says, any update on the Mentuhotep Maui video? So were you the one that was into this and you wanted me to make that video? What was that about again? Oh, that's right. You were saying, did I make that video or not? I can't remember. You were saying, this guy was saying that the Mentuhotep, which is Middle Kingdom, those statues look kind of like the Easter Island statues. And I believe I just didn't notice enough similarity myself to make the video. So I believe I didn't. So yeah. Interesting. Von DeLu says it's 1:53 a.m. Central Time. Seth says, let's talk melting stone. Let's talk melting stone. So all the stone melting happens by acids from plants. I don't want to mess with that stuff. If it's going to melt stone, imagine what it does to your body. I'm clumsy. I could tip this table over and just accidentally just walking past it. Why would you play with this stuff? But there's other experiments you can do without acid. I don't recommend anyone doing chemistry at home does anything related to acid. Waste of time, dangerous, going to hurt you. It's terrible, But these people in the ancient times, they did it. Anyway, yeah. So California, hey California, how you doing? And all these people are saying what time it is where they are. Cool. So Vrovny says, check out the pictures. The builder's skill in those monuments are just fab. I don't see any links. Maybe you want to post the links. Shane Moss says, how do you recommend a newcomer to learn Latin? Just start reading it. And have a couple different texts. Each person writes Latin differently. You'll get accustomed to it. And it'll take you 20 years. So just keep reading it. And just even if you don't understand it, just read it. Just read it. The brain will absorb the pattern, and then it will fill in the pattern with the words. So just keep reading it. Read it aloud so it's in your head. And then the brain is making connections. Even if you don't say, oh, wow, that word is that. It doesn't matter. The brain is learning. And then you'll watch a movie and you'll hear some similar words in Spanish, for example. Yeah. And you'll see similar words in English. You'll know what word it is in English because English is based on Latin and Old German. Or French and Old German, but lots of Latin. For example, butter, it's a Latin word. Yeah. The rover says, Max Fisher says Latin is a dead language. The problem is the old science books, which would mention Geopolymer, are probably written in Latin. Neuromancer says Cleopatra's Needle obelisk in New York. I've never been to New York, but I guess it would be amazing. The Charmed Crone says it's 3:53 p.m. in Queensland. That's 4. It's an hour later here. That's interesting. Jace Ventura says 20 years. Thanks. No, it won't take you 20 years. So I've actually been doing Latin on and off for like 15 years, and I hardly know anything. I learned it feels like 5 years ago, but it was actually 2005. That's 15 years ago, and I was not very good at it. And my professor had been doing it for 20 years. And when he would pick up the Latin, he would start reading it. He would say, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then he would say, what's that word? What's that? And he would have to look up that word. And then he would say, wow, why would they use that word? What does that mean? But when you read it, it feels like you're reading something from another world, because it has words like, which is similar to English word like mirabilis or fabulum, which means story, mirabilis, which means miracle. And you think that's similar to mirror, which is for them a miracle. So when they saw a mirror on the wall, they would actually call it a miracle, you see? And you can start to see the Roman thought process, the Roman world. And you think, wow, that's quite interesting. So I really recommend it to see how and you can start to see how the Romans thought. And another funny thing about Latin, they spoke like Yoda. So they put the verb at the end. So Yoda is like speaking like old European, which is very interesting. So he's that's how they used to speak in ancient Rome. So the senators, when they spoke and made speeches, they made speeches like Yoda. I'm not exaggerating, just like him. And that's how the Romans spoke. And of course you can see, they must have been very wise men speaking like that. Yeah. So, Vrovny thinks he is posting the links, but I don't see any links. And someone said, are you trolling? Maybe it's so old that it's become invisible. Yeah, so Blitzkrieg says, your thoughts on vibrational frequencies and moving, shaping stones. I've never really thought about it. I'm not that interested in it, to be honest, but someone else can do that. I don't see it happening. And the reason I don't see it is, why would you build that way when sound makes ripples? Like, what ancient stones have ripples in them? Like, maybe can sound help? Sound would help something to crystallize, because to make crystals, you need warm temperature, electrically conductive solution, and water that is being agitated. So maybe a sound would help to grow a stone for sure. But do builders use sound? Has a builder ever used sound? So I don't know why people say he's fascinated about sound. Oh, I sent Paul Devereaux an email. You know Paul Devereaux, the ancient mystery person? He didn't reply. Yeah, I don't know why. I told him, look, this thing your colleague found in the 70s in your Dragon project, the beeping, the kingstone starts beeping at dawn. His colleague drove out there at dawn, freezing dawn, to roll right, and he had an ultrasonic detector. And just as the sun was rising, or just before the sun was rising, beep, 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 and it's stronger near the kingstone. It was beeping at it. And then, as the sun rises, the beeping grows fainter. And by the middle of the day, the beeping is gone. And it comes back again a little bit before evening. And I told him, oh, this is atmospheric electricity, because Mr. Andrew Cross found the same result with his atmospheric electrical accumulator, which was I'm sure Tesla copied it, but he reversed it. He tried to put the electricity back into the atmosphere, because Andrew Cross talked about the electricity going backwards and forwards. I think Tesla read this, and he tried to pump it back into the atmosphere to see what would happen at the Wardenclyffe Tower. But Andrew Cross's one, which was the inspiration, a mile of cable stretched out along the treetops around his property, and his maid touched it during fine weather. She got a tremendous zap. If she touched it during a thunderstorm, she would die. It came into a collecting ball in his philosophical room. And he noticed at dawn, when the sun was rising, the electricity was the strongest, or he called it the positive charge of the atmosphere. Back then positive was negative and negative was positive, because positive was the source and negative was the absence. And then they discovered the electrons, and they thought, well, we better make the electron a negative charge since we're calling the proton a positive charge. And they reversed it, and they confused the hell out of everyone. And I'm still confused about this. Everyone's confused about this. But if you look up the early sources, when they mean electron, they talk about electric fluid. It comes out of the positive. Okay, it's close towards the negative, but not these days. No. What are we talking about? That's right. So, Roxy Rocks says, have you done the Golden Rain experiment? I've never heard of it. What's it about? Give me a link. Vrofny says, enough. The Rover says was it a Rushmore movie reference? John James says this is exactly how I think. Don't filter information based on your current paradigm. Rather, take in as much data as possible. You are absolutely correct. Take in as much data as possible, because if you filter your current paradigm, you're getting nothing, aren't you? You're getting nothing. Jace Ventura says, I get you. I'm learning because law. You're learning law? That's interesting. Charmed Prone says, I'm sure as we can translate on the internet, we might slowly learn a couple of words in Latin in the next 20 years. Sure, but don't just do that. I need to get myself a couple alchemy books written in Latin. That's what I want to do. Just a couple alchemy books, like physically written in Latin. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I want to do it like that so you don't see, because I'm fat. I don't want to show too much fat. Right. And then just read it, and your brain will absorb the pattern. And once you get the pattern of how the language works, you'll start to really understand it. Even if you don't know what words mean just yet, it'll be the way to do it. So, Urna Lycurgus says, do you know of any updated info on the black goo inside the Serapeum Egypt? Are you talking about the black substance, which they claim was an alchemical substance used to coat the sarcophagi of the Serapeum, which I believe, is it not, is in Upper Egypt, close to the Temple of Hathor, is it not? Not too far off, maybe a kilometre, I don't know. Is that what you're talking about? I don't know anything about it, mate. But this must be known. I'd love to consult some old books and find out, about stone building, how to build in stone. And I'm sure this information is out there somewhere. It must be. It must be. I mean, it's like Robin Hood. I found lots of information about Robin Hood in a chronicle. Robbing from the rich, giving to the poor. It explained exactly what he was doing and who he was, and it's no secret. And I showed my professor, and he said, "This is incredible. This is classic Robin Hood." And the few historians who have seen this dismissed it because they thought he wasn't yeoman or peasant enough. And I found out yeoman just means someone who was working for the king in the high Middle Ages. Only in the later Middle Ages did it mean someone who was under a knight, because this guy was a knight. And people get it so wrong. All this information is out there. It's all out there, and people don't see it. Yeah, they don't see it. Jay Smith says, where do you think the name Europe comes from? So is not Europa a goddess? And the name Europe started to be used, I believe, in the Renaissance, in Renaissance Italy. And they started drawing Europe as a woman, so the peninsulas became the legs and the arms and so forth. And they would put Italy in the center, or if they drew it in Spain, they would put Spain in the center. They made Spain the head sometimes. The Spanish Empire drew Spain as the head of Europe, and then the arms, Italy was one arm, and maybe Scandinavia, England was another arm, like that, And, yeah. And you're asking, where is Europe from? I believe it's from the Renaissance, and for some reason they chose this goddess. I don't know why. Maybe you'd like to research that. Yeah. So Glenn says there was a patent given to some priest in the 1700s for Roman cement. Didn't know they were patenting in the 1700s. That's interesting. Maybe they were in England. Blade says, hello Blade, he says, could Uluru be super old structure or temple? Yeah, maybe. Jace says, that's why I love you. I love you too, Jace. Blade says, do you know of Shattered Mountain? It's raining. Jace says, thoughts on the 21/12 Uluru ceremony, Charles? I don't know about it. I'm so sorry. Right. Vrovny says, I answer no questions. I have sent links. You didn't put them through. Who is trolling here? I don't know. I haven't seen any links, and you're not blocked to my knowledge. And I think Jace Ventura is a moderator, so he should be able to see if you're blocked or not, but you're not blocked, so I don't know what's happening. You know, we want to see your links. Survivor Girl says, hello. Hello. California Republic says, I smell urine. That's interesting. CFFs, you live freak. Hello, CFFs. How you doing? Survivor Girl says, what part of England are you from? It's not England. This is in Melbourne. I'm speaking with a Melbourne accent, but maybe you're talking to someone else. The Rover says, standing with stones around England, inside one stone tomb that looked like a stone column was actually petrified wood. Can wood become petrified in a couple thousand years? I think wood can become petrified in 1 year if given with an electric charge. I think that all geology and fossils are formed with an electric charge. What do you guys think? That's what I believe. Yeah. Oh, someone's given me something. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mike P. Oh, cool. So Mike says, isn't it weird that Iran had all of this ancient knowledge, yet they weren't able to do anything with it? Europeans discovered it, and then the Renaissance, math happened. Yeah, I sort of agree with you, because Iran had a great empire. They collected knowledge. They owned Egypt. They were a European people, a center of learning. Later, they were conquered by the Arabs. If you look at the Iranian alphabet, I told an Iranian, hey, your alphabet is Arabic. And he's like, no, this is Persian. But he said, we do have 4 or 5 letters, which are Arabic letters. So, but the Arabs literally did conquer them. So some Iranians look, I know one Iranian, he looks exactly like a Russian. Another Iranian, he looks like an Arab. So they are quite mixed. It's quite interesting. But yeah, you're right, Mike. It's so strange. So just getting up a little bit. Ricky says, you look so serious tonight. Mate. Hey, Ricky. CFAP says, black substance found in mystery sarcophagus at the Zayat El Iran mystery pit. Wow. Oh, okay. Could this be pitch, tar, something used for preserving the mummies? What do you think, CFAPs? Survivor Girl says they dismiss the most important things. Charmed Crone says, COVID body, not fat law. I want to learn Italian. Hubby's, so Charmed wants to learn Latin, and I've been saying, read a Latin book. You'll get the pattern in your head, and then you'll start to put words to them and use a dictionary. There's online dictionaries, and you'll start to get it. Just keep reading, keep persevering. Read the letters of Seneca, you'll get there. But it's such a slow process, yeah, because we don't use it every day. Yeah. So Ed Orany says, Hornery says, have you heard of the idea that lightning can fossilize things instantly? I haven't heard of that, but I believe in that. So Andrew Cross, his house burned down in 1894. All his laboratory notes were lost. All his experiments and information manuscripts are lost. If you go there today, I'd love to make a pilgrimage there. It's in Somersetshire in England. The only thing we have is 2 books about him. That's it. One is only vaguely about him, but he went to a cave systems, and he said, surely these crystals are made by electricity. And he proved it. He grew crystals over the years with electric charge from voltaic batteries, and he found that geology is electrical and biology is electrical too. He had hooked up plants to electrodes and found they grew better. He found that all plants respond to positive electricity, that is electrons back then, but fungus responds to negative electricity, which is interesting. So you switch the atmospheric polarity, the fungus would actually conquer the Earth. It's quite strange. So fungus would grow at nighttime, because he also found with his exploring wire that, I don't need to write a book about this guy, but he found with his exploring wire that the atmosphere was negatively charged at nighttime and positively charged in the daytime. And it was most positively charged during thunderstorms and during driving fogs, and at sunset and sunrise. Yeah. And even to this day, have you ever heard of an electrobiologist or an electrogeologist? But this guy noticed this 100 years ago, and I believe Tesla. I made a controversial post on my Facebook, and I said I reckon I'm going to write a book about Tesla called, you're not going to like this, but The Great Recycler, because it seems he recycled, with the Wardenclyffe Tower, he recycled Andrew Cross's experiment, and he decided to pump the electricity back into the atmosphere from the power grid. So he was draining the power grid to pump back into the atmosphere. And many of the things he did, the fluorescent light, he gets a lot of credit from Tesla fans. You look it up. On Wikipedia, it says fluorescent light was invented in the 1850s. No. Andrew Cross's colleague, George Singer, mentioned a fluorescent light in the 1814 book. A long tube 30 inches filled with mercury and light is emitted. I found another inspiration of this guy, an earlier book from 1709. And in this book, he describes a fluorescent light, another tube full of mercury. Tesla got a lot of credit for applying the power grid to these earlier inventions, but if you look up the Tesla biographies, it never says that these were earlier inventions that he modified. It just says he sort of came up with them because he was a genius, right? But he was reading, he was well read, and he read these earlier books. Yeah. So Survivor Girl says, I miss 99 ice creams with the flake bars and meat and potato pies. Let's look at there's a nice cumulonimbus cloud forming out there. Let's have a look. Hope I don't get hit by, I don't want to get hit by lightning. I'm staying here. There we go. Look at that. There's my view. Well, there's no lightning yet, so it should be safe, but I am on top of a building. I feel a bit scared, actually. But thunder might start any time because I'm the highest position around, except for those trees. Right, okay. Where was we? So, yeah. So, okay. So, Blade says, in Queensland, there is a very odd rock formation known as the Black Mountain or the Mountain of Death. I made a video about that one. So I said there must be some organism living under there, which is some Lovecraft type creature, but that was just a bit of fun, bit of speculation. Like a huge fungus, maybe. Ulna Lycurgus says, I cannot find much info on Greek fire. Do you have any? What do you think? See, this is an experiment which would be very cool to try out. I'd love to try this out, but I don't know anything about it. It's called naphtha. So is it naphthalene? I don't know. But that's what they called it. Survivor Girl says, okay, well, talking about Australia, what kind of archaeology sites have they found there? Have they ever unburied any kind of significant archaeological finds? I'm just curious. Yeah. So what they have done, it's very exciting now in New South Wales. If you look up the work of Steve and Evan Strong, and there's another author, he's just released like a beta version of a Kindle book. It's about 80 pages about this massive Ohio-type serpent mound in New South Wales that the government destroyed in the 20th century, and massive conspiracy, suppressing information. It was an omphalos of Australia. Aborigines from all over Australia went there. It was seen as a centre of Australia, just like Ayers Rock was seen as a centre of Australia for people to journey to, all tribes to journey to and to celebrate. And it seems that the government wiped it out. It was a massive mound of snakes made up of rocks on top of a mountain. That's gone. Now it's actually a housing development that's about to be destroyed forever, apparently, but books are being written about it. I visited archaeological sites myself in Sunbury, out of Melbourne. They're called Bora rings. Aborigines made circles in the earth on hilltops. And so I sort of went over a fence and stood in one. And I noticed it was on the side of a hill facing, and I believe it was facing due south. And I thought, well, that's very interesting, because here we have basically an astronomically aligned observatory. And I noticed that the other hills in the distance of the Sunbury landscape could be construed as kind of a Lee line network. And I thought, that's very interesting. And unfortunately, someone decided to plonk a city on top of Sunbury. So if I was trying to find many of these Bora rings, and I was walking up people's driveways of their brand new houses, and they were wondering who I was or what I was looking for. I was trying to look in their backyards, their newly built backyards, and the fields behind, looking for these Bora rings. And unfortunately, it's very developed. In Western Victoria, there is a beautiful, very old Stonehenge. Someone took me there, and I have a drone. I took the drone up, flew the drone around it, and I didn't put that out though, because you're not really supposed to be there. I didn't really go into it, just took the drone there. But someone could destroy it very easily. The stones are small, they're 10,000 years old, and they can be taken. Someone can put them on a truck and take them away. Rover says Standing with Stones is a documentary on YouTube. Jace Ventura says lots of anomalies in Queensland. You got info? Survivor Girl says they never say the Australians discovered that. Ricky says we're being zapped by plasma and the sun, in my opinion. I believe you are correct, Ricky. Survivor Girl says, so what was going on way back when? Latinus Rex says, Jace Ventura says Latinus Rex Maximus. You creep says, Survivor Girl, how are you? Blade Clint says, I want him to go there and check it out. You creep says, Chuck, hello. Survivor Girl says, I'm good. Lou says, hey, you're looking good. Jace says, there's a ton of info needing to be made public about Australia and its role in ancient times. So here's the problem about Australia. It seems we have quite unpredictable weather here. For example, the last 10 years it's rained quite a lot, but not as much as in the 90s where it rained every day. And then the previous decade to this one, the 2010s, it actually didn't rain. It didn't rain at all. So children, apparently when they heard hail on the roof for the first time, they were screaming because they were like, what is going on? You know? And this could surely wipe out a civilization. And could this be why there was no civilization in Australia? Or if you could call the Aboriginal civilization a civilization, which parts of it were, they were growing agriculture, this would keep getting wiped out all the time. So there would be nothing concrete except for the stone circles, of which we had very many stone circles before the farmers destroyed them, to go by. But I think maybe the Pacific people and the redheads, they probably set up a civilization on the East Coast. For example, there was a Pacific pyramid, the Gympie Pyramid, which is now destroyed. And many things have been destroyed, unfortunately. Yeah. Right. Survivor Girl says, really, electricity is magnetism. Look at when you rub a balloon on your head or a sock sticks to your clothes. Yeah. Jace says Nikola Tesla or Nick Tessellation, Masonic. Blunt Force says cool stuff. Thunderhawk, hello Thunderhawk, says tell us about the days of purple skies. Cool. Old Blighty says hello from Cumbria, England. Hello, Old Blighty. Jace Ventura says energy can only transform, it cannot be destroyed. Terra Spence says hidden history, they was a sieve. And also says, and the Portuguese was there. And buildings were for the British. Neoclassical buildings. Pachacudi, the great warrior, says, hi, how? He says, how? There, what do you think about the channel Bright Insight that made a theory of Atlantis in Africa? Well, I think, and I believe CFF thinks, who is watching now, that the problem with that theory is Atlantis should be down there, and that mountain's up there. Blitzkrieg says, I find it interesting that the Aborigines of ancient Australia didn't build any permanent structures. I am of Aboriginal descent too, but other ancient cultures all over the world did. Thoughts? Well, they built stone circles and possibly pyramids, but what is an Aboriginal? Can someone please explain this? For example, Europeans are Aboriginals of Europe, but they're not described as Aboriginals. What is an Aboriginal? Is an Aboriginal someone who evolved in a country without any like autochthonously? Is an Aboriginal, and the archaeologists treat Egyptians like Aboriginals. They say they originated pyramids when clearly they got it from Asia. Who is an Aboriginal? Yeah. If I married an Aboriginal woman and had a baby, the descendant would be Aboriginal, and then the descendant would say, well, since I'm an Aboriginal, I've been here forever. Have I been here forever? Well, I have, but not my ancestors. So what's an Aboriginal? Right, the rover says, I could never sleep in Australia because of the big spiders. They seem to get into the houses way too much. Juggernaut says, hey, Chuck. Michael says, hey, Charles, good job. I wake up early. It's 6 a.m. here, lol. Blitzkrieg says, perhaps due to the nomadic lifestyle, living with the land and moving to sustain food sources. Terra Spence says, political term. Jace Ventura says, we have lovely women in Australia, not all of them venomous. Nice. Shane Moss says, Jace Ventura says, born here, native if yes. Survivor Girl says, so the stones are small that they found there. They're very small. We're talking Wordy Yuang. I'll give you a link. Wordy Yuang. It's about 100 kilometers. 50 kilometers from where I am right now, and it's quite small. Yeah. So J-Star Kush says, Chuck is live, I'm down. The rover says, we saw that. He doesn't want to sleep in Australia because there's spiders. Okay. Big spiders, he says, which are going to crawl up at you and kill you like they tried to do to James Bond. Yeah. Cool. So Blitzkrieg says, perhaps due to the nomadic lifestyle, living with the land and moving to sustain food sources. The thing is, though, the Aborigines were not nomadic always, because I've looked up a biography of someone called William Buckley. He was in a colony called Coronella in 1835 here in Victoria. And they said, we're packing up, we're moving to Tasmania, we're going to found Hobart, which became their capital. And he said, no, hell no, I'm fed up, I'm going bush. So he went bush with two others, they vanished or they were killed. He was all alone living with the Aboriginals for 25 years. And as an escaped convict, he sort of tried to avoid any other Europeans, but he didn't see any for 25 years. There were none in Victoria. Between 1805 and 1835 when they returned and they found Melbourne. But he was living with the Aborigines, and one tribe would live in a certain area for about 3-4 years, eat the berries, and they would move on if the food supply was exhausted or if another tribe pushed them out. So they were not totally nomadic. They were also trading eels. Another thing from the book I read, which was fascinating, was there appeared to be some kind of centralized command. So there was one tribe commanding all the other tribes, which I found very interesting. It was somewhere in central Victoria. And this tribe said, we want a tribute of axe heads. Everyone has to bring axe heads. And William Buckley wrote, this guy must have been some joker. We didn't respond to the request. What a joke, or something like that, you know. Was it some kind of centralized command or something? Was the civilization in a period of meltdown, perhaps triggered by the Europeans founding cities in other parts of Australia and the tribes were starting to move around and so forth? I don't know. Michael Cannell says, good job at 6 a.m. here. Okay, what else have we got here? Okay. Myth, the spiders will carjack you before you get to camp. You know, I think I've been bitten by spiders a few times. Like sometimes you have like a fever for 3 days and you have a couple of puncture marks and things. And the doctors, they don't tell you it's a spider. They just says, oh, you'll get better, whatever. You know. But you can be bitten, yeah. Yeah, but you're right, it's a bit of a myth as well. I don't think they're going to kill you. The snakes will kill you though, but it's so rare, it's just not going to happen. So you're right, Jace. Pottingus Human says, according to Wikipedia, everyone is an Aboriginal except white people who don't come from Europe and must be from outer space. Lol. Pretty much. And even in Europe, for some reason, the Europeans are not considered Aboriginal. Only the Sami are considered Aboriginal because they have shamans, you know. But everyone had shamans, you know. I mean, what the hell do you call a Roman priest who's opening up the livers, who's learning and chanting hymns? Is that not a shaman? You know what I mean? Does a shaman have to live in a tent to be an Aboriginal? You know? Juggernaut says the Dresden Codex, what looks like an American eagle-style birds in it. Azazel Morningstar says if ancients poured monomer stones to shape, excusez-moi, then mineral quantities such as quartz, etc., could be reasonably implied. Odd that human bones are piezoelectric. Star forts have munition batteries. I don't know about that. That might be a little bit of a reach there. Survivor Girl says, in what you're talking about, you don't have to read so blasé and condescendingly because you know what they're saying and could read it how they mean it and not say, yep, cool, whatever. Well, I'm deeply sorry about that. Survivor Girl, just saying from one intellect to another, you have a lot here that are intellectual, but you're very flippant about comments. Well, I'm very sorry that you have been offended. So Jace Ventura says, stop Survivor Girl. Ricky Spence says, Jace, we just have gangs that will carjack you. Our spiders are well behaved. Cool. The Raver says, if I lived in Australia, my walls would have shotgun holes all in them. Cool. Ulna Lycurgus says, sounds like the government wants us to believe they are abnormal, originally more propaganda. Survivor Girl says, I don't get it, white folk, are you from Mars? I thought they were from Europe, lol. Jace Ventura says, maybe Europa, moon of Jupiter. Mike says, Aboriginals are not from there like Africans. That's why they have no history. James says, Alan Wilson and Welsh history. So Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett, they are just the best historians of ancient Britain. But they have such radical, strange theories. So they talk about, they even say that the dendrochronology, recalibration of carbon datings, which was done in the 1960s and the 70s is incorrect. So what they do is they compare the tree rings of the bristlecone pine with the carbon dates. And after they did that, they found out that the carbon dates are actually probably 500 years earlier than they should be. But this is not applied evenly across the geography. It's applied more in ancient UK than in ancient Egypt. And in some parts of ancient Egypt may never have been applied at all, or Egypt. So what Baron Blackett and Alan Wilson are saying is the history of Western Europe is dated 500 years earlier, carbon dating, than the history of the Near East. So that puts the Trojan War in 650 BC and not 1200 BC. And that solves the problem of the missing centuries that Velikovsky was talking about. So that's a very radical theory, but they have these radical ideas, which are quite interesting, yeah. Right. So, yeah. Yeah. Michael says, give me a break, don't be too hard on me. Louis says something which I don't want to repeat. Survivor Girl says, I thought Aboriginal was short for absolutely original. That's a good one. Blitzkrieg says, lol. Louis says, don't let them fool you. Ricky Spence says, have a cocktail and relax, Survivor Girl. Jake says, no, I didn't mean to be condescending. No, I was trying not to be when I started, because I realized, oh, maybe I might start. I might have given that impression, but I don't want to do that. J Star says, Charles, have you heard of the Roman portion of Eleusis? Please excuse spelling. Eleusis, are you talking the Elysium Mysteries, which we don't know what they are? This Eleusis, Elysium, what are you talking about? Elysium is heaven. Yeah. Michael says, ever heard the story of how the Maoris were descended from an ancient people who fled the wars detailed in the Mahabharata? I don't know about that, but I tell you what, the Maori must be mixed with the ancient giants because of their sheer size. You know, I saw a Maori guy today, and I thought, maybe there's a lot of ancient giants in them. They're like ancient giants mixed with the people of Asia, you know, like maybe the Filipinos or something like that. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Abby says, normal young Frankenstein law. Azazel Morningstar says, does it really matter where whatever hue of human you resonate with originated where? It doesn't matter. But if it doesn't matter, then we're allowed to talk about it. That's what I think. So it doesn't, that's the thing. Like they say, well, I think maybe there's a large component of English people who built the pyramids because words like Thoth are thought, and he is the god of thought. So, and they helped to found Egyptian civilization. And someone would say, well, hang on a sec, that denies the Egyptians the capacity to build their own buildings. Well, no, it doesn't, because one, the Egyptians are descended from these people, so they are them. Two, if everyone is equal, then what the hell difference does it make where they're from? Let's get it right, you know? What do you think, you know? So, yeah. Right. Jay says Maori is a British term, not Indigenous. I wonder what their Indigenous term is. Pottinger's Human says tone moderating on a live stream about ancient archaeology mysteries. Lol. Yeah, so, you know, juggling 4 or 5 balls, isn't it? Yeah, but, you know, yeah, right. Oops, sorry, this table is not very good. So Tebor Perry says, any ideas on orichalcum, the Atlantean metal? Not really, but I think it's from America, from Lake Superior, because that's where it all came from. And I believe those mines shut down around about the same time or slightly before the orichalcum disappeared in Europe, which was maybe 600, 700 BC. Survivor Girl says, but I was only kidding about the absolutely original. I've only ever heard Aboriginal used referringly to Australians, like, are there any pygmies left? Louis says, excuse my venting, I apologize, sir. Ziggurat Lynn says, what do you think the Ark of the Covenant is? I think it's an ancient high-tech box, which is before the Bible, and the one in the Bible was, it was talking about an earlier legend, because that box was the proof of God and the covenant of God for them, the promise of God, because that was the proof, that was God for them. That box was the whole basis of what became, I suppose, the Judaism of Jerusalem, although there were different types all around the place. And apparently there were hundreds and hundreds and possibly thousands of arks everywhere. Every temple had their own ark, and none of them were the original. It was some ancient high-tech legend. Liz says, have you visited any ancient sites, Charles? Oh, many, many, many. Survivor Girl says, underneath, and as I'm sure many of you have as well, Survivor Girl says, underneath the Vatican Lynn. Darren Brady says, what do you think of the Bradshaw paintings in WA? So did you guys hear about this? The Bradshaw paintings, I'll put up a link. The thing about them is half of them disappeared in the last 10 years because of backburning, and apparently this caused a massive fire which melted them away. Because it seems the area was not used to bushfires for a long time. These are from 20, 30,000 years ago, and the paintings are basically African in style, which is fascinating. And they used to say the paintings are kind of, some people used to say they're more artistic than the regular paintings. So was it a foreign culture? And they also said they asked the Aborigines who made them, and the Aborigines didn't know. And this is a recurring theme. If you ask the Aborigines, for example, they asked the Aborigines about stone circles that used to be in Victoria at Mount Elephant. They said they didn't know. These are from 10,000 years old, very, very old things. These Bradshaw paintings, 30,000 years old. Yeah. Oh, F says hello from Paris. Hello, F. Pottinger's Human says, hard to trust any dating. It's impossible to corroborate. And I think you have a bit of a point there with some things. So Michael says, Ricky says penile colony. By the way, do you know America also was a penal colony? Americans say Australia had convicts, right? What do you think America was? America was a convict colony, and when America split away, that's why they had to settle Eastern Australia to make a new convict colony, because they didn't have America anymore. I'm serious, but not every state would have been to the same extent a convict colony. Yeah. Tesla made his building in New York sway with his resonance earthquake machine. Think that story is true? I've always thought that story of Tesla might be a little bit apocryphal, and the way to find out would be to look at the oldest possible publications about Tesla to find out if it's true, or to look in a new biography to see if that's true. But I thought that one is a little bit too good to be true. And the other story about Tesla that's too good to be true is, you know, the one where he got some newspaper reporters and he hopped in an electric car and started driving around, and you never heard about that ever again. I think that one's a bit too good to be true as well. By the way, the holy grail of motoring is if someone can find a lost photograph of a steam car built by Andrew Cross's engineer son, who was a genius, just like Andrew Cross, an electrical wizard. We talked about him earlier. He made a steam-powered car in the 1850s and drove it around the village. And there was a countess sitting on top with them, and she actually fell off and somehow fell under the wheels and was crushed to death. And because of this, the family didn't want to speak about it ever again. They seem to have dismantled the car. There are no photographs, but this would be, the first car on the planet, would it not? Made out of with steam power. This family, no, sorry, it's not Andrew Cross's son. It's William Parsons' son. William Parsons built the biggest telescope in the world. He was a top engineer in the 1850s in Ireland, in Central Ireland, and just an engineering marvel. It had a few imperfections, but with that he could see spiral qualities of galaxies. And he made discoveries, and other people made discoveries with this massive telescope. And his son made the first steam car, and that is now lost to history. If you look up steam car or car, you probably won't see this ever mentioned. It just shows that history is wrong. So, what do you think about that story about Tesla or the electric car? I really don't believe that, but that's surely the inspiration Elon Musk drew upon in calling his company Tesla. And of course, Elon Musk, although he's a very wonderful person, you know what he's doing? He's mining the shareholders and the investors, like a mining company. That's what small mining companies do. They mine the investors. And I don't know if his stuff will ever turn a profit. What do you guys think? Yeah. What do you guys think? Right. So Michael says there's a great documentary. They fled east across the Atlantic, crossed South America, out to Hawaii and Easter Island, finally settling in New Zealand, leaving their footprints in cultures worldwide. Pottinger's Human says, hard to trust any dating, it's impossible to corroborate. Azazel Morningstar says, well said, Charles. Jace Ventura says, I love two things, our real story and truth in language. Survivor Girl says, well, look at Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, this guy made inventions that work today, but he didn't even have the technology, but somehow he knew they would in the future. Louis is speaking in Greek, and he says, Maioro is the color black in Greek. So that's what they are. Right, okay, I understand. It's just another way of putting it. J-Star Kush says, I'm half Maori. I guess we could be a mix of some. So I was saying earlier, you guys could be ancient giants because you guys are some of the biggest people in the world. What's it saying there? It's saying I'm running out of data because I'm running this off my phone. I don't really have internet here. Whatever, let it go. I'm half Maori. I guess we could be a mix. Well, maybe we'll end in about 10 minutes or so. He says it's a mix of something. The rover says it's clear Egypt was found and reused by those that inhabit it now. Mike P says people sub-Saharan Africa came from the Pacific, and he also says, didn't the Romans conquer Africa? F says, where are you leave in USA? Marcel Stegman, hello, says, what's up, Charles? Blitzkrieg says, I think most of our history we've been taught isn't our actual history. Just saying, and I'm talking worldwide history. Azazel says, have you looked into the layers of paint on Leonardo's work? Layers much thinner than the finest hair available at the time. Odd, isn't it? Yeah, this was one of that Russian lady's theories, wasn't it? In one of her videos. Fascinating stuff. And she was saying, are these old paintings photographs? Well, you know what? Here's the thing. What if you can glaze over the top with, say, a sponge? You can use a sponge brush, glaze over the top. What if you can hide the brush strokes? What if you can melt the brush strokes? There's lots of techniques. Pottinger's Human says, just look how fast they are erasing history today. Survivor says, well, didn't Rome burn Romulus and Remus? How do we know the real Romans conquered anything? Oh, hey, indeed, how do we know? How do we know? And in fact, you're right, because the maps are reconstructions of what the Romans conquered. It's quite interesting. Louis says, I thought, it's way up there. Jace Ventura says, Charles is right. Both countries are in reality plantations. Barton Campbell, hello, Barton. He says Georgia was the penal colony. Oh, I see, Georgia. Okay. You're very clued in about this. Ricky Spence says, our politicians' ancestors created it. Ricky says, hi, it's me. Survivor Girl, I really wanted to know if there's any pygmies left. J-Star says, the daughter of Mercedes stole a prototype and broke a long-distance drive record. I didn't know that. The Rover says, America and Australia are England's bastard children. That's why we are so much alike. Yeah, I've noticed the gentle element in Australians is what all Irish people have. And the more assertive element is the Scottish, that Aussies also have, is Scottish people. You know, so it's funny that they both mixed to form Australians. Like, especially here in Victoria, it's very Scottish-Irish, or it was. Now it's Chinese. It's become Chinese Indian in Melbourne. It's quite interesting. Classic Chris says, "What do you do for work?" Before you said you were in the lab. Sounds exciting. Go rewind to the start, and you'll see I did some lab work about bit of mixing ancient British cement. We're going to talk about that. Barton says, if you want to see how the world will end, see the documentary El Fargo. Survivor Girl says, I mean, you really can't say where the first humans were without knowing how humans even got here. They could have just been planted all across the earth. It could be from another planet, took a ship here. Yeah. Marty says Aboriginals used the Nepean Highway. Ricky Spence says Americans are the red-headed stepchildren. Stuart says there was a race of giant Aborigines in northwest Australia. They lived off the coast on the islands and they totally disappeared in the early 1900s. Wow. Excellent. Well, I'm going to wrap up now because I'm running out of data. I really don't want to go into the red and there's no proper internet here. So I'll show you the view one more time. I've got a cool view here and then we'll say goodbyes, you know, and there's my view. Check that out, man. Hang on. So there's Mount Dandenong. I'm looking towards the east. And yeah, that's the view. Let's go on the balcony. Looks like the thunderstorm's dying away, so I'm not going to be hit by lightning. There's a rainbow over there, actually. There's a rainbow right there. I don't know if that'll come out. Do you see the rainbow where it's dark? And it's raining on me. Yeah. Anyway. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Jace. Thanks for being here, Jace. You're such a good moderator. Ruhiga Sturm. Hello, Ruhiga. I think a combination of worldwide catastrophe and native peoples eliminated the mound giants. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so guys, I'll see you later. Thanks so much for joining in. It's been a short one today, only 1 hour 23. Hope you have a wonderful day. Have a brilliant time. Read some Latin books, get the Latin pattern going. If you want to learn Latin, I'm going to do that with alchemy books. Keep Wild Child, Ruhiga, Knights Templar. Yep. Frankston used as a place for tribes for depression. This is interesting stuff. We'll continue this in the next one. Well, guys, I'm going to hit the end stream. See you later. I love you guys. Thanks so much for being here. And yeah, bye-bye.